Well, hello everyone. Happy Tuesday. It's yeah, can't believe it's Tuesday. Woke up and thought it's Wednesday, but no, it's Tuesday. I got to get my days right. Anyway, it's good to see you guys. Glad you're here. I see some of what has become our family. Hi, Sam from Hawaii. And I saw someone who was a first timer in there somewhere. I'm going back. Kristen Willette, first timer here, back at it after lots of tiny humans. I love it. Well, I'm glad you guys are here. And, you know, um, so Laura Ann, the way that she puts the cool bumper in front of my lives is because I have an amazing manager, Diego Calderon, who does it because it's not anything I know about. And he uses a streaming partner or a program called StreamYard. But it's Diego's the wizard. That's why the one week that Diego wasn't available, it was just me popping in. So anyway, he is the magic behind it all. So thanks, Diego, for all you do. Hi, Peggy from Texas. So I am going to couple things. I want to make you guys aware that all of these past lives that we've been doing live on my Beverly Holloway casting page, so you can go back and access them if you want to revisit some you might have missed, because there's a few questions that we tend to get um, kind of on a repetitive basis. And so I wanted you to know that if I ever say, I've answered that previously, go ahead and check back to one of my previous sessions. I just want you to know that they do live on that page and you are able to access them. And you might sometime want to just go and look at the ones that maybe you've missed, and you can kind of pop around for questions that might be interesting to you. So while I have no problem, answering questions, and sometimes, answering the same question more than once, there are a few questions, like questions about sometimes about the demo reels and whether we should do clips versus a long demo reel. I have answered that a couple of times. So if that's something you're wondering about, do you want clips or do you want a full demo reel? That's something you'll be able to find on a previous live from a few weeks ago. So yeah, you might just revisit those. You can kind of jump around to whatever topics or questions seem to be interesting to you. So yeah, but I'm always happy to have you here. I'm happy to have new people. So you have no idea what I've talked about before. So yeah, we can just jump into any questions that are coming through. Until I see a question come through, I'm going to, then you go. Oh, when did you realize you needed to transition from one person to having a team? It's the decision for me was when I started to want to grow beyond what I've been doing. So the casting side of things, as far as casting projects, I've been doing that for almost 30 years now. And so, I have my assistants and associates and kind of my rhythm of that. But I really had a desire to do more interaction with actors and with people. I have a desire to do more teaching or coaching, and a little more like either one-on-one or smaller type communication or more direct communication. And so as my desire for that and my heart for that grew more and more, I realized that was taking me into territory that I couldn't do on my own, and that was not a strength of mine. So that's when you seek out people who have strengths different than yours, so that together you guys can do something new. That's the case with Diego. He has a completely different set of skill sets and strengths, and just even a mindset, the way he approaches the things that can challenge me, that can help me kind of think through a choice that I'm going to make. And then he also pushes me into areas that I've not been comfortable going into prior to joining forces with him, this live being one of them, kind of doing a weekly ongoing session and just the mechanics behind that. So yeah, I think whenever you have feel like you've gotten as far as you can on your own and there's things you want to do and accomplish that go beyond what you can do on your own, then it's time to kind of think about and pray about what that might look like, and that God would open the door to the right people or to open conversations, which is what happened basically with Diego and I. So, what does Beverly Holloway's team consist of? So, I have my casting work, which is myself. I have two associates and an assistant at the moment, but that varies depending on the project. So, anytime we're working on The Chosen, that's a much bigger, much bigger project and a lot of roles and things. And so that's usually when I have kind of the maximum team. And so casting associates, like an associate versus an associate is typically someone who has more experience and who usually someone that I've worked with for a while. Both of my current associates I've worked with for a while, love them and trust them. And they get to know and understand kind of what I tend to like, how I like to work. And I feel confident about them that they could step in and run a session if they needed to. They're both excellent actors, so they're my primary readers as well. But I trust them to kind of be able to work as another me with regards to the mechanics of things and submissions. So that's not to say I don't go through submissions. I do, but like for example, on one project we just did, we had 8,000 submissions for one role, and and then that was only one role in one project, and at the time we had several going on. So there's um, probably aren't. Hold on. Let me see if I can fix something on my end. Hmm. Sorry. Hopefully, I don't know if you're seeing me, but my computer's now all of a sudden trying to do a bunch of things. I'm back. Okay. Thank you, Diego. I don't know how much of that you might have missed, but I'm back. It's always good to know I'm back. That's why you need other team members too, so they can tell you that you're back. Anyway, so my team can kind of step in and do some things alongside of me so that we can actually get things done. So associate versus an assistant. An assistant I typically won't have as much experience with, and I wouldn't necessarily have them like making choices or kind of being quite as involved in the actual casting process, but coming in and coming alongside. So typically they're working with someone to provide more direction. So yeah. Okay. So what kind of people should an actor have in his or her team to help further his or her career? Again, that depends on where you are. I went 30 years before I combined together with someone to kind of go to that next place. And so for an actor, I think you'll know when it's time to maybe seek out a manager if you have an agent and you're trying to decide. But I don't know that you necessarily need to immediately jump right into having a manager, if that makes sense. And that there is no set time frame for that. Just by the way, it's going to be you kind of having a sense of when it's the right time, when there's bigger things you want to accomplish, and you're feeling like, or you connect with someone and they have a thought or a path that they see for you that also meshes with what you want to do, and it kind of organically comes from that. So yeah, it's not a set thing, but an agent is probably the most important. A manager, depending on where you are in your career, and then mentors or teachers, like who's going to be your primary teacher, where you're going to study. And then I think it's really important to have friends who are not in the business, or friends who are just, they're your friends, they're not your competition within acting. I think that's also really important to have in your circle. So which is better to list in your social media bios, your actor's website or your IMDb? Well, IMDb is important. That's the standard. Most industry people are going to go to your IMDb first, no matter what. Even if you list an actor's website, they're going to look you up on IMDb first, because that's the standard. That's kind of the objective sort of platform and format, whereas an actor's website, of course, is you finessing and making yourself look as good as possible, where IMDb is, we just see your credits, we can see basics or whatever you choose to put up there, but there's a lot of other information that is just pure industry. So I think IMDb is important. All of you, I've said this before, but all of you should have an IMDb Pro account, not just because IMDb is free. An IMDb Pro account becomes a tool where you can look up actors that you're trying to figure out, okay, well, which agencies do the kind of projects or support the kind of projects I want to do. So you look at the actors who are doing the kind of work you want to do, who are their reps. You research directors, who are the directors, the producers of the kinds of projects you want to do. You research them. What are they doing? What are they doing next? Like, what are the common links? So IMDb Pro is really something you should have, not just IMDb. So yeah. Let's see. Are you familiar with the audition tape Corey Monteith sent to Glee? It was totally different and not industry standard audition, yet he still got cast. I'm not familiar with it. So I can't really speak to that. I've not seen that before. As far as auditions that are more creative versus industry standard, you just need to be really careful. I would not, as a rule, go outside of the box, because that can actually be more frustrating than helpful. I've always said, if you're going to do more than one take, then maybe a second take can be more, slightly more creative. But I would just be careful. You hear stories about that, but if you think about all the actors in all of the projects, you're citing one person, Corey Monteith, who was an exception. Think of the literally hundreds of thousands of other actors who've gotten work and done work, and they didn't do it by getting overly creative with their auditions. So, I think in that respect, you have to think it through. If you have something really you feel really strong about trying, or for some reason you're really connected to it, again, maybe in a second take. But guys, I've seen tapes that people are trying way too hard to get noticed. Like, they're just trying to be cute, trying to be catchy, trying to stand out. And we see it. Don't try to be anything. Just be yourself. Be the character, be authentic in the piece. Don't try to be cutesy or catchy or stand out. That's not how you do it. So yes, there are exceptions to the rule. And I can't tell you when and not to do that, but I can tell you there are hundreds of thousands of actors who do not get creative with their auditions and get cast. And then you hear about one or two that do and get cast, but that is not the norm. So just to be sure about that. Can you chat about Blue Ridge and what you're looking for specifically with that show? Well, of course, every role is different, so there is no like specifically on that show, but you can get to know the world. Like in that case, if you were sent an audition for that show, what I would tell you to do is it's based on a movie that we did a few years ago. The first thing I would tell you to do is go watch the movie so that you understand the universe, you understand the texture of the show, the kind of the pacing, the grit, the world in which this Blue Ridge universe exists. And then that would give you a lot of information. That's the same thing as The Chosen. I can't tell you exactly what we're looking for, but you have now 3 full seasons of resources to understand the texture of the show and the kind of point of view, the creative point of view, the way in which Dallas works with his characters. So when you have resources like that on a project, then I would use them. So yeah, Blue Ridge, it's available places you can watch for free. So something like that, anytime you're working on a show where they have episodes you can see, or a previous movie you can see, or if, like, for example, that show's produced by Gary Wheeler. If there wasn't a Blue Ridge movie, in this case there is, but if there didn't happen to, I'm back. I'm not quite sure what's going on with my computer tonight. The gremlins are getting at it, and I'm not very excited about that, but let me try to. Sorry, you guys. This is the whole not being very professional part. Poor Diego's like telling me when I'm lagging, and I can tell because I can see the image on my screen, and I'm going slow-mo, like anyway. Okay, so so even if there wasn't a Blue Ridge movie, you could certainly go and see a lot of Gary's work, and that would also give you a little bit of insight into his particular style. So yeah, there's a lot you can research on your own. Again, IMDb Pro is the way to do that because it has the information that where you can go through and find people and see what they're doing, see what the connections are. You can find out where things are playing. So yeah, IMDb Pro is a really, really important tool. Okay, Peggy, I think acting is like being a ball player. You need to always be prepared, yes, and sit on the bench waiting to be put in the game. As a Christian, I believe that God is the coach and will call on me when I can serve his purpose. As a flawed human, I can be so impatient. I let the waiting bring me down. Can you offer encouragement to all the actors sitting on the bench? Well, I agree with you in some ways, but I actually don't think you should ever be sitting on the bench. I think that God has given you a lot of tools, and you probably are doing these things. I understand what you mean, or I think I understand what you were saying as far as sitting on the bench, meaning you're not actively working on set on a job. You're doing all of those other things, but just like a ball player, you're going to practice every day, or whenever the coach is there, you're working on whatever the coach is telling you you need to be doing. If you're sitting on the bench, the coach has a reason why. Either he's not ready for your strengths yet in the game, it's not the right combination or the right time. Maybe you've been injured and you need some time to sit things out. So, and as far as doing that comparison, there's sometimes mentally when you just may not be in the right place. And I know that's happened for me on the casting side, where I need to step out for a little bit. I need to reset and let God kind of reset so that I can go back in the game with enthusiasm and with the energy that is needed, and quite frankly that the team deserves. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons, but you still go to practice, you still work out with the team, and still put in the days and the time. You watch tapes, right? Players watch tapes of past games to understand their performances and to understand maybe what they've done in the past, or see a habit, or a kind of a repetitious action that is maybe not as beneficial. That's where I think class is so important. So I agree with you. I ultimately, God is the coach. Ultimately, God is going to know when and where to put you in. And you're right. It's our job to be as ready as we can be, to be used of Him, and to keep taking advantage of all the resources He has put in front of us, and then be at the ready to go in the game, be in shape, be mentally ready, be prayed up. Of course, that's a huge part of it. So yeah, oh, Amy, I just got home from 2 of my son's baseball games. My youngest, oh, that's awesome! Congrats to him. That's awesome. I used to play softball when I was younger, and yeah, it was fun. I loved the team aspect of it, but that intensity of, like, I pitched for a little while, and that 3-2 where you're like all that pressure, I didn't do well with that, where it's a 3-2 count, and that this next pitch is gonna do something. And yeah, so I didn't last as pitcher very long, but helps me to make all these sports analogies. Diane, if we have a lag in work, should we create our own content or just keep our professional work and keep training, submitting? If you have the resources to create your own content, great. Get together with other actors, other filmmakers. Find a director, or someone who wants to direct and hasn't had the opportunity, and they want to keep themselves going. And so, yeah, there's no downside to creating content. There's zero downside. So, and allow that time to push you. That's the time you can try roles you would have, don't necessarily think you're right for, but you want to push yourself creatively and push some boundaries. Do that. That's what you should be doing. And if you're an actor and you've thought about, I'd like to maybe direct something, then get together with other actor friends. Absolutely. There is no downside to that at all, at all. So yeah, I think that's great. I think that kind of energy and that kind of excitement, it just breeds more excitement and energy. And that's part of my, again, teaming with Diego, was just being at that point where it's like, man, I want to stretch myself, I want to try some new things, I want to broaden what I'm doing, I want to challenge myself in new ways. It was just, I was ready, or I think I'm ready. And the timing was right, and God brought the right partner into the equation in Diego. So God has confirmed that for me, at least so far. But there's no downside in that kind of endeavors or work. You don't know how many people tell me, like, I want to create content, or should I create, like, combine together with the people that shoot something on iPhones. Man, iPhones are so crazy good now as far as cameras and things like that. You don't have to have a bunch of equipment. Try writing something for yourself, a monologue, and then tape it. Try writing a 2-person scene with a fellow actor and then tape it. Like, all of that is good. If no one ever sees it, that's not a bad thing. It challenged you in a new way. It causes you to be thinking and growing and looking at character development. Like, those are all really great things. They're not, there's no downside to it. There's just no downside to it at all. Would you say more faith-based projects cast out of LA? Definitely Atlanta, definitely the Southeast. There's not a lot. In my 30 years, there's not a lot. There's been only a handful of things actually shot in California. California is very expensive to shoot in. Um, Typically, you don't do non-union projects out of California. There's just a strong base there, but yeah, so it's expensive. You're competing with all of the studio levels, all of the, other production entities that are trying to work in California. There's not good incentives because the studios tend to get most of the incentives, or the bigger budget projects tend to snatch up most of the California incentives. So, yeah, there isn't a lot. The place you're going to find more is in the places that have better incentives. So, of course, that's Atlanta. Um, I'm this is oh um let me try. I don't know if it's the internet in my area or what's going on. So oh yes, the lag monster. Yeah, not quite sure what's going on because this actually hasn't happened to us in live. So it must be something going on with the internet in my area, unfortunately. So um okay, when should I move from lower budget movies to only bigger budget movies? I don't think you should ever move to only bigger budget movies. I don't know why you would. I don't. I think some people think, oh, that's a strategic move. I'm only going to do bigger budget movies now. I don't even only do bigger budget movies. I take it on a case by case basis, a project by project basis. I look at all of the information and I make a decision as to whether it's a good fit for me or I'm a good fit for them. But I don't have a policy of only bigger budget projects. Um, and so, as an actor, I don't know why you would either, because you could get an amazing role in a small budget film that could completely launch you into another kind of level in your career, or you could be waiter number 2 in a Marvel movie. Like, which is going to be better for you in the long run, right? um so I would never set that policy for yourself. I don't think there's any good reason for it. I think you always have to look at every project. And I've gotten that response from actors like, oh, we're going to pass because they're just focused on bigger budget projects. It's like, okay, it's a great role for them, but that's fine. It's your career. You can do what you want. But I would never advocate that you decide all of a sudden some arbitrary thing of I'm only doing bigger budget. I don't. You want to do great roles. You want to do good work. So um, yeah. And yes, the indies did sweep the Oscars. I don't know that I loved all of their choices, but yeah, it was definitely indie quirky movies, which um, sometimes I look at the Oscar list and shake my head, honestly, just because I think um, sometimes it's a little bit esoteric in the choices that they make and the movies that they end up rallying around. And um, yeah, anyway, that's a conversation for another day. Um, but yes, Peggy, some of the best roles can be in smaller budget projects. Apart from casting, you're also a public speaker. What is your favorite public speaking moment? Well, clearly not right now because I'm completely tongue twisted. Um, every speaking opportunity is unique, so they all have a beautiful part of them and a good memory attached to them. So I love being able to just be real and honest with people and just talk in a real way. I I'm not I don't tend to be the person that's ultra kind of showy and slick. That's not usually kind of my MO, but Yeah, so I like speaking. I get passionate about speaking about something I care about. That's really the most important to me. I'm not the one to, bring on to speak about something that I really am not connected to, just for the sake of getting a speaking gig. That's not really my goal. But if I can talk about something I'm passionate about, then man, you're gonna get a lot of fire, a lot of enthusiasm, and probably have to shut me up, because I could talk forever. So, um, okay, if Christian movies are casting Hollywood actors, should I pursue stepping into Hollywood as well? Um, okay, so I know we always say like Hollywood actors and stepping into Hollywood as if Christian movies aren't a part of Hollywood. It isn't an us versus them. I think what you more mean is mainstream, or secular movies, versus like Hollywood versus Christian. Because I don't think there's a separation between the two, as far as this clean delineation of us versus them. Um, you should be stepping into whatever movies, whatever content you feel led to, whether it's a character or a subject matter. I also don't think you should limit yourself to just faith content unless you feel really strongly that that's your calling. And it could be, it very much could be. You could feel led that that's the only kind of content you want to do, and that's fine. But unless you have a compelling reason, meaning you feel specifically called to that area exclusively, I don't know that you necessarily need to limit yourself. There's a lot of content out there that is not objectionable, that are great characters, that are inspiring stories and hopeful stories and entertaining stories that I wouldn't necessarily avoid unless there was content that was objectionable to you. So, um, I I don't think there should be as much of this categorizing as one or the other, as if you have to make a choice between the two. I think you're deciding what kind of content you want to do, where you feel like God's calling you to, and the doors He's opening. For my career, I didn't set out to primarily be involved in faith film, but those are the doors that God opened, and that's the path that He clearly meant for me. I didn't set it out. Like I didn't create a strategy for it. It's the doors that He continued to open and the relationships He continued to strengthen. And it, I think I've learned a lot. I've taught a lot. He's shown me a lot. Um, and so I do think as a result, He's gifted me in a way that I think makes me helpful or useful in the faith space. But I also embrace content that's not specifically faith based, although I do have obviously boundaries about what I will and won't do. But it's not quite as specific a line for me, and I don't know that it necessarily needs to be. But God will open the doors, like He did with me. He'll open the path, create the path that He's called you to, and that's He called me to and gifted me in a way that the world of faith content and the faith audience is something I'm particularly passionate about now, especially after all these years, that I think I understand very well. And that's where I think I'm very helpful to producers, especially producers who may not have as strong an experience with the faith audience and faith content. Um, and that's just because God has strengthened that path and that calling for me. But He would do the same for you. Like, I don't think God's going to call you and give you a really strong passion for content that goes against Him, number one. Um, and, but it may be unconventional at times. Maybe there's someone He wants you to meet, or relationship He wants to strengthen, or quite honestly, just someone that you're supposed to work with so that you can be salt and light, be His hands and feet, and plant some seeds along the way. So, hi, Candace. Um, yes, He will open the doors and close the doors and direct our path. That's exactly right. And I'm so grateful he does that because, man, it would be hard without any kind of direction or center focus. I was watching the live stream for The Chosen on Sunday, and they were showing the documentary on the walking on water, making of the walking on water section. Um, and I'm lagging. I can see. Um, try to look. Yep. I'm not sure why it's happening. Next time I might have to reboot before we go live. I'll reboot my router. But anyway, I was saying I was watching the making of the Walking on Water and watching them trying to figure out. They're standing on these thin mats, but in the middle of the water that's really rocking and rolling. And you just needed to keep his eyes on the Lord and keep his eyes focused on Jesus so that he wouldn't drown. And it is like that. You could drown in this business in a big way, whether it's financially or emotionally or spiritually. Those are all ways you can completely drown if you're not keeping your eye in front of you through everything else that's happening. If you're not keeping your eye steady on him, then man, that would be so hard to try to navigate and balance and to do that all on your own. So I'm super grateful that we don't have to do that. We don't have to do that. We can have that center. We can have that focus. And what you're going to see back is the eyes of Jesus, who loves you and who wants the best for you and who can assure you that although, things may be rough, you might be in the middle of a big old storm, he's got you. And, you're still going to get through it. You're going to walk the path. But yeah, having that center focus is huge. I'm not quite sure how people navigate this business without it. So I think it's huge and powerful to just keep that in mind. Just always keep there. Doesn't mean the storms don't come. It just means that we have our focus in the right place, and he has assured us and promised us that he's got us. So yeah, he'll get us through. Okay, so I'm not quite sure why tonight has been so crazy as far as the internet, and I really apologize for that. But next week, I'll make a note to reboot things, and hopefully that'll start us off on a better place. But thank you for sticking with me. And next week, Diego and I have talked about a couple things we're trying to cook up for some fun Tuesday night activities. So I am excited about that, where it's kind of interactive, and maybe we do some 1-minute monologues that you guys can sign up for and have some, interactive notes and redirects and things. So we'll keep you posted when we get that going. But we have been talking about some fun plans for our little Tuesday family. So I appreciate you guys, especially for sticking with me through this lag. And we'll all just keep our eyes on Jesus, right? Keep our eyes in the midst of the storm, focused on the one who loves us, the one who cares about us, the one who only wants the very best for our lives, and the one who can set our path way better than we ever could. So anyway, I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. We'll see you on next Tuesday. And happy Easter. This weekend is Easter. You guys, happy Easter. I just pray that it's a beautiful time for you. Of course, Friday, remembering the sorrow of it all, but then Sunday celebrating the miracle that was done for us, and the sacrifice that was made for us, and then the resurrection. There's a lot to think about and contemplate, but so much to celebrate. So I hope you all have a beautiful and blessed Easter, and I'll see you next week. Bye.